Congratulations on
Thank
making
you.
the short list.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Can you tell us how you feel about it?
I feel so happy. I feel so glad. To me, it's like a validation of all the work I've been doing in the area of children's literature for the past 18 years. So it's like a huge recognition for me. It's a huge accomplishment for me, and I'm so happy and grateful to God and to NLNG.
From the cover of your book, The Father's Pride, um, what comes to my mind is it is related to the girl child.
Yes.
Can you tell me more?
Yeah, it related to the girl child, but at the same time related to children all over the world, because a lot of children, especially in Nigeria, are going through all forms of abuse, domestic abuse. And like I always say, when people talk about domestic abuse, the first thing that comes to their mind is a man beating the wife or maltreating the wife, but it goes beyond that. A lot of children, according to the statistics released in November 2023 by the National Population Commission, more than 50% of Nigerian children go through one form of domestic abuse or the other. It's like out of every 10 children, 6 have experienced one form of domestic abuse, and sometimes it's so consistent, and this kind of a thing will make children to be psychologically damaged. But of course, more girls are abused than boys when you come to think about sexual abuse and all of that. But that's not what the book is all about. It's about domestic abuse. The hero of the book, who Rena, the protagonist, she was abused by her aunt, who is supposed to take care of her. And this is the plight of so many children in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole, and in fact, all over the world. So that is when you look at the cover of the book, you even see that the girl has a bandage on her arm. It's one of the instances where the aunts beat her and injured her.
Okay, take me through the journey of the book from the conception down to this shortlist.
Okay, it's very interesting because I started that book many years ago, like 4 to 5 years ago. And the title was not what we have today. The title then was Sad Sadia, you know. In between 2018 or thereabout, when I started the book, and now I've written other books. I've written If They Tell the Story, which won the ANA Prize in 2022 for prose. I've also written Timmy and the Baba, a picture book. So this book is so special to me. Very special because I took my time. I don't know why. I just took my time because I looked at the things happening around me, like what I talked about, the domestic abuse on children. So it took me time. I'll write and keep it. The first time, after the very first draft, my editor, Temitayo, looked at it. She said, Ndidi, I like this concept of the child's right arts, I really like it. NGOs will love this book. So when she said that, it got me thinking, and I now went back to the drawing board. I wanted to do something more, I had to thicken the plot. Even my friend Femi Adedeji, he said the same thing. Ndidi, this book is good. Please build it up and all. So, it took me time. I kept on writing. So along the line, it has now transcended picture book to become an early chapter book. So it was no longer just an ordinary picture book where I wanted to create a scenario of a child who was being maltreated. So I had to look at other concepts. I had to look at the issue of environmental degradation, which is a major global issue, climate change and all of that. And I was thinking, how can children, because the book is targeted at children, how can children do something about the environment? They can do little things like tree planting, even the way we dispose of our plastic, sometimes they are just swept into the rivers and oceans and streams. And the fishes, when they eat little plastic, some of the fishes die. So a whole lot of it, a whole lot is going on. The ecosystem is disrupted, So I decided to build in a lot of things to make it a total package. So even the aspect of culture too, because these are things I'm passionate about. There are so many good aspects of our culture that is dying out, the issue of storytelling, folk tales, and all of that. So many things are being eroded. Our languages are dying. So I just decided to, put in all of this. And eventually, I had to change the title. Because when I started with Sad Sadia, I had an Hausa scenario, in mind. But I'm not too familiar with the Hausa culture, language, and all of that. So I had to change it to a setting in Igbo land where I would be very comfortable writing and capturing all I needed to capture. So eventually I had to, switch the title, and Saturday would have made it very restricted. So eventually I changed the title to another one, The Golden Chance, Urena's Gold. I kept on until one day I had a meeting with some of my friends. Femi decided, why not A Father's Pride, and Temita also bought the idea because it's a collaborative effort. It's not just have a good team, that all of us put our heads together to. I'm the author, of course, but there are other people who chipped in their bit to make the book a success story that it is today. Yeah.
Did you have the NLNG in mind when you were writing your book?
I said that I started this book almost 5 years ago. Initially, it wasn't intended for NLNG, but along the line, when I kept expanding it, and the prize was joining, I'm like, okay, so why don't I just quickly? Last year, I just said, Ndidi, you have dwelt on this book, why don't you just quickly finish it so that I can enter it for the prize? So that was what I did. But I started, like I said, in between 5 years ago when I started it, I've written 2 other books. So eventually, I narrowed it down to NLNG prize. So I could say yes and no.
Okay.
Initially, it wasn't intended for that, but along the line, it transformed, and then I had the NLNG prize in mind when I was wrapping up the story. Yes.
Okay. And that was last year?
Last year, yes.
Okay. What were your expectations when you were submitting? What did you have in mind?
Yeah, my expectations were high. Like NLNG prize, it keeps writers on our toes. It keeps us on our toes. We have to do an excellent work. So you don't just submit anything, because the panel of judges, they are well grounded and all of that. The panel of judges, the advisory board. So if you want to submit a book for that kind of prize, you have to be thorough. So I was anticipating, because even from the reviews I've been getting from the book, I had high hopes. So I had high hopes, so to say, that it made it to this shortlist, and I'm trusting God for the best.
What is your opinion on what the NLNG is doing for literature in Nigeria?
It's fantastic, to say the least. So many literary prizes have come and gone. We've had the Etisala Prize, we've had the Cadbury Prize for poetry. We had so many prizes. In 2009, one of my books, One Little Mosquito, won ANA Prize for children's literature, But even that prize is no longer being sponsored by the originator. So people and organizations, is like, after some time, they get tired. The NLNG has stood the test of time, which is a great, I give them a lot of accolades for that, they've sustained this prize for the past 20 years. And initially, they didn't start with 100,000. There was a time the price was 20,000 USD. So they've done well, in recognizing the role of writers in society, in bringing this kind of reward system for writers. So it's a huge accolade for me, for NLNG. They've done so well, and I pray they continue to do so. They continue to sustain the prize. Yes.
This is a question we usually ask everyone.
Yeah.
Who gets shortlisted. Yeah. What is the prize going to do for you? What is that one thing, or
the prize?
You do?
The prize will do a lot for me. It will do a lot for me. I don't want to sound cliche, but then, like I've said in previous interviews, I've been involved with a lot of advocacy for children. Since 2006, I launched out the celebration of the Children's Book Week in collaboration with the Lagos State Library Board at Obakinjobi Street. When you do these things, you hardly get sponsorship from corporate organization, but because this is what I enjoy doing, I just keep at it. There is also the Aspiration Workshop, where I bring together people to come and talk to children, various aspects of the creative industry. There was a time we had illustration as the theme for that year. I brought my illustrator, I just tried, because children are happy. Children, they want to read, they want to learn. So, but most times the opportunities are not there. So I do, in fact, seeing the smiles on their faces, it gives me joy. So I just keep at it. But sometimes I'm so hindered by finances, I can't do. Like 2 years ago, a school called me, "Oh, Ndidi, what do we have for Children's Day this year?" I say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't have the financial capacity, the sponsors didn't really respond. So, and she was so sad, but there is little or nothing I can do. So this prize will make a lot of impact in what I've been doing for children. You know, I've also been involved in book donation exercises, and these parts are verifiable. If you go to my social media pages, you see there was a time I donated so many copies of my books to the Police Children's School in Idimo. I've done book donation exercises in Anambra State, my home state, Lagos State, Ogun State. So, you know, but like I said, sometimes you're hindered by finances, you can't do much. So this prize will go a long way in seeing that I sustain all those things that I do, which gives me joy, which give children joy. But at the same time, I'm not going to exhaust all the resources. Of course, I will do something for myself. I'll get myself something nice that when I look at it, I'll be eternally grateful to NLNG. You know, of course, I will also help people around me. I will help people around me, family, friends, buy lunch for some friends and all of that. So, yeah.
You've won a number of prizes.
Yeah.
How confident are you that this book will add to that number?
I'm very confident because a father's pride to me is a total package. For me, children has been exposed to screen time. We need to manage the children's screen time, the internet, you know, children being on social media for hours, being on TikTok and all of that. We have to bring back their attention to book. And if you look at A Father's Pride, like I said, it's like a book that can keep children engaged actively for a whole year. We have a chapter on tree planting. This is to motivate children to actually go outdoor, plant things in the garden. You know, when I was in primary school, we used to have gardening as things. We monitor what we planted, but these things are no longer being done by so many schools. It's like education has been so commercialized. They are teaching children coding. They are, you know, all of those things are good, but then we have to look at our environment. We have to look at the climate. There are a lot of changes in the climate, and this thing, if we don't tackle them, it's like we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder that is going to explode. So we need to go back. You know, forests are being degraded, trees are being cut down. You know, all these property developers, they don't care. They just clear a whole forest to build. And, you know, we are talking about climate changes. So this book would redirect children's attention to some of these. There's always something they can do. They can plant trees. There's a chapter where the protagonist in the book was telling folk tales. You know, these are things that life does not begin and end with the internet. There are so many other things that makes life worth living. So these are the things that A Father's Pride is portraying. Children can learn their local languages, like Urenna in the book was teaching that family, you know, their local languages. A lot of children cannot speak their local languages. For me, there is no reason why a Nigerian child cannot speak at least one Nigerian language. So these are the things in the book. They can form language club in their schools. They can form, you know, social cultural clubs in their school where they can. There is nothing wrong by saying that maybe a day in a week will be like you know, local language day where everybody can come. You can just teach your fellow students basic greetings in your dialect, like the Yoruba person will say, oh, Migo, Yoruba people like Karo, you know, Igbo people in Dewo. You know, Nigeria is blessed with so many ethnic groups. These are things that there are activities that will unite us rather than separate us. So these are the things that I have tried as much as possible to portray in A Father's Pride, to redirect children's attention to other things that make life fun, that make growing up fun.
Okay. Every writer has a story.
Yes.
So there are every circle we see people coming or wanting to become like you. So what is your word to budding writers?
Yes. Last week I was at the National Library for the celebration of International Literacy Day. So there were a lot of students that were invited. They were asking me questions. When I read a portion of A Father's Pride to them, they were so excited. You know, at a point, some of them even say I should come and motivate them and pray for them, and I encourage them to be the best in whatever they are doing, not to be pressurized, because there is a lot of pressure out there. people posting on Instagram, and some of those things are fake life. And a teenager somewhere is striving to be what that person that has posted on it. Meanwhile, it's not the real life. So I have to keep on encouraging them, be focused, do what you have to do, take your studies very seriously, and you can get to whatever heights you want to get in life. If you're focused, if you're determined, don't get distracted, because there are a lot of distractions out there. So that is my advice to budding writers, people who want to. And then I always tell them that you cannot write very well if you're not an avid reader. For you to be a good writer, you must read other people's work. You must be an avid reader. When you read, you generate ideas for your own work. And then you have to be an active observer. You go somewhere, maybe even a party, everybody is busy enjoying. But as a writer, you observe things which can form the plot or theme of your next story. So you have to be an observer, a keen observer. You have to be an avid reader. And then don't get distracted. Be focused on whatever you're doing. And I think you can make a success out of your life.
What is your final word to the NLNG?
Oh, they are doing something very fantastic. You know, apart from the Nobel Prize for Literature, the Man Booker Prize, and probably the Commonwealth Short Story Prize, to me, this is the next most prestigious prize, especially in this part of the world. As far as I'm concerned, the Nigeria Literature Prize is the most prestigious prize in Africa. Yes. And for them to have sustained this prize for the past 20 years, and like I said earlier, they didn't start with 100,000 USD. It started with, I think, 10,000, 20,000, and they've been able to increase it over the years. And apart from this, they also have the Nigerian Prize for Science and the Prize for Literary Criticism. So they are doing a whole lot, and I thank them, you know, and I wish them all the best.